Alright, we're going to go ahead and get started now with the Radeon 6950 XT. So this is going to be AMD's previous generation flagship. So let's see how the game runs on this GPU. Yeah, I need to look into that Intel PresentMon. That sounds like a really good tool. I really want to see how that works because that can really help me look at CPU bottlenecks. This game is mostly CPU bound though. If you go inside the camp, like this scenario right here where there's all these other players on the screen, I assume PresentMon will show that it is a CPU bottleneck. Mostly. It should be mostly CPU bottleneck. But the thing is, the GPU utilization is still very high. So let's take a look here. So similar to the... Here, let's see what it did. Okay. So, 4K. Oh, but see, okay, it turned off frame gen. And it set the balanced preset for upscaling, which is not even 1440p. This is a resolution... This is what I call an intermediary resolution that is somewhere between 1080p and 1440p, and then it takes that resolution, which is sub 1440, but it's higher than 1080, and it upscales it to 4K resolution. So I typically use quality for 1440p rendering, and we go with ultra settings to match what we were doing with the 3090 Ti and the 4090. And this is the performance. So it is actually... It's actually quite similar. I have to go back and look. Maybe you guys remember better than me, but so far we're like in the 30s to 50. It's like all over the place in here. Let's go outside real quick, see how this changes, if at all. So this is without frame gen. So the natural frame rate for a quality preset 4K on Ultra is around 45 to 53 frames per second. So it's somewhere in that upper 40s to lower 50s. That's the frame rate on the 6950 XT. So honestly, this is actually not that bad considering this GPU was... It was... well, it was actually quite short-lived. There wasn't a lot of these. This is basically a 6900 XT with faster VRAM. That's basically what this is. It's like a factory overclocked 6900 XT with better VRAM, newer VRAM, that had slightly higher memory bandwidth because it was clocked higher. That's essentially what this is. PresentMon is open source and you have a file you could use to not to set up yourself. Well, I don't have a problem setting it up myself. I'll just have to look into it later off stream. But yeah, that could be a useful tool. So you can see this GPU pulls 280 something watts while playing the game, so it's not that power hungry. If I remember correctly, the GPU's TDP was around 330 watts or so, somewhere around there. It was less than the XTX, but it was more than the 3080 in terms of its TDP. I forget what the full number was on the 6950 XT. But yeah, this one, let's turn on frame gen now, because it's going to need frame gen. Alright, frame gen to the rescue. There we go. Okay, now we're actually... I need to go back and review the footage with the 3090 Ti. But this is interesting, because this is actually quite good. This is actually very good for this GPU. I'm actually surprised. And I'm surprised the power consumption is what it is. I thought it was going to be higher. So let's go back in the camp now. So, okay, let me get an idea of this. So those are around like 90. It's like mid 80 to like low 90s. So let's go into the town and see the CPU bottleneck. Alright, see, CPU bottleneck has arrived. It dips to the 70s. That indicates the CPU bound has taken over. And here come the players. Donut Boy. So, yeah, the CPU bottleneck has dropped it into the 70s. So, yeah, this game is hard to run. There's no denying that. It's going to be very hard to run. Going away from the players. Look at that. Look at that. It's in the 60s now. Very dynamic frame rate. It's a dynamic frame rate. CPU bound on the best current gaming CPU. Yeah, of course. Of course. There will always be CPU bottlenecks in all games that have high like games that are like this, that have multiplayer lobbies like this. A multiplayer lobby like this is always going to be CPU bound. It doesn't matter how powerful the CPU is. It will always be a CPU bound situation. Like always. 100% of the time. So this is 9800X3D with 6950 XT. Because this is actually very similar to the results that we saw with the Threadripper and the 4090 in the town. I'd have to go back and review the footage, but this looks like it was the same results. I don't know. I can't help but think that that 3090 Ti was performing very poorly. This is actually doing quite good. We'll have to go outside now and test the different settings. Why is it going so slow? What's going on here? There we go. See, this is the area that I want to see, like, with PresentMon. When this is happening, what is this? Is this a CPU bottleneck? Where it's... I saw it go into the upper 50s. It dipped all the way into the upper 50s just now. So, is this a CPU bottleneck, or is this GPU? It's hard for me to tell. Because the GPU is still always pegged at, like, 98%. GPU busy would tell? This game is performing pretty good with the 6950 XT. Considering how old this graphics card is, this graphics card, like the 3090 Ti, will become a middle-aged graphics card next month. Or actually, no, that's not true. In, I think it's like 2 months. I think in April or May, this GPU will turn 3 years old, which means it'll become middle-aged. And it'll be up for replacement. So, yeah, it's, okay, let's see, because, to be fair to that one, let's turn off the frame gen. Alright, let's get some numbers here. Get off this mount. Okay. Okay, see, now, with no frame gen, now we see the true frame rate of the 6950 XT. And I purposely went outside to get away from the other players so that I would eliminate the CPU bottleneck. I don't know what's going on over here. But all I know is this is a console experience. This is so RE Engine, man. This is exactly the same as the Dragon's Dogma 2. I don't understand why I'm still fighting these things with a hunting horn. I like how they're all just like roaring at me. Whatever. Okay. Okay. This is so stupid. These raptors, man. These raptors need to get out of that lake. Get those raptors out of that lake. Man, what is up with these raptors? Killing them with music? I know, right? Man, this is a lake of raptors. But anyway, this feels like I'm playing it on a console, man. Like 36 frames per second, for real. But see, that's the thing, though. That is what Capcom said was the target frame rate of Dragon's Dogma. It was 30 frames per second, and it was mainly because of the limitations of the engine. So they're not doing much better with Monster Hunter Wilds on RE Engine. So hence the reason why there's so much emphasis on using frame gen. There's really like not a whole lot you can do to improve it, because it's like you gotta do the frame gen, it seems, if you want those higher frame rates. It's like impossible. What else can we do here? We can reduce this to like 1080p. We can get some 1080p numbers. 1080p gains like 10 frames per second. But see, it's still, I don't know. Like, okay, let's do one thing. Let's remove this. Disable the upscale. And drop this to 1080p. Let's do actual, like, 1080p. Real 1080p. No upscale. Ultra settings. Now what? Okay, look. Now it's actually almost able to hit. But it looks so low res. The game looks so ugly at 1080p. I'm serious, like, who could actually play this at 1080p? It looks so bad. We got more raptors in the lake. What is up with these raptors in the lake? I'm not about to turn this into a raptor lake. See what I did there? Get these raptors out of that lake. Yeah, this looks ugly, man. I don't know how this looks on stream, but to me, 1080p on a 32-inch monitor looks so blurry. This is like a fuzzy-wuzzy game. Like, what is this? Okay, get this out of here. This looks so bad. But hold on, before we do that, I want to drop it to high. Can I make this go above 60? It can almost do 60. It's so close. Look, it's hitting 60. What? Okay, I found it. I found the limit. I found the limit. You gotta run the game at 1080p high settings on a 6950 XT with a 9800 XT. You can hit 60 frames per second. There we go. Looks out of focus, and then it immediately dips to like 50 something as I turn the camera around. Man, this is rough. Medium? Does medium help? Okay, medium. Medium helps, but medium is where it starts to look really bad image quality wise. This looks like someone's turned on FSR 1 in Final Fantasy 16 on a PS5 in 2023. This looks so bad. This looks so bad. How can anybody play the game like this? Hey, at least the frame rate's good now. Mostly. I like how as soon as they say the frame rate is good, it dips to like 58 for a split second. Like what? Like right on cue, right on cue. When I start talking about how, oh, the frame rate's good now, and it shows 58 frames per second. RE Engine just likes to show itself off, huh? The joys of RE Engine. To think that this was one of my favorite game engines back in 2019. Wow, how the times have changed. Look at that water. Look at that water. Look at that. Console is like in the mid-30s. Low to mid-30s on console. The PS5 Pro does a little bit better, though. The PS5 Pro is, like, closer to 40. But, again, the PS5 Pro is going to get a patch. It's going to get, like, an enhanced version of the game at release. You know what? Tomorrow, I'll stream the game on PS5 Pro. Actually, I don't have a capture card connected to this computer. Technically, I could show you guys the PS5 Pro right now. I just have to go and find a capture card. Yeah, we'll do that one tomorrow. We'll cover PS5 Pro just for completion because I wasn't able to test. It's hilarious because this game, the demo in November came out the week before the PS5 Pro and the 9800X 3D. So now I'm able to showcase 9800X 3D. That's the reason why we're going to do a lot of streams with 9800X 3D. And we can also show PS5 Pro. So PS5 Pro, do we want to do that now? I gotta go find, I gotta get a capture card. I don't have a capture card connected to this PC. It's connected to the Tech Thursdays PC. I'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll just focus on this one for now. No, not yet. I have not tested with XTX. We will test XTX. Well, see, I was planning to test the XTX with the 9950X, not this CPU. Because that's the one that's in the live streaming computer. That's in the, I say that as I'm like live streaming on this PC. Like the Tech Thursdays computer, that's the one that has the XTX. Now, I could put another XTX in here, but it's like, why do that when I was already planning to showcase it with that other machine? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, we will test 7950, or no, 9950X with 7900 XTX. That will be one of them tomorrow. 6085 in town with Threadripper. Yeah. That sounds about right. I remember that. Yeah, it was in the first live stream. This is the third live stream. The first live stream was Threadripper in 4090. The second live stream was 9800X3D plus 3090 Ti. And then now this one. Okay, let's get rid of this 1080p. This is like giving me a headache. It's so blurry. Ultra. Actually, hold on. How does the game run at 1440? Because I consider this GPU a 1440p GPU. So if I wanted to play it at 1440p, medium. Okay, 1440p medium is like right around 60, but it dips too much, so I don't know. It's like upper 50s to mid 60s at 1440p medium, no upscale. Really? There's too many people playing it on PlayStation Network? Wait, for real? Hold on, PSN is down because of Monster Hunter? Are you serious? PSN? PlayStation Network currently suffering major outage. Monster Hunter Wilds open beta is currently ongoing. What the heck? Okay, we're not going to showcase that. We'll do that tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow. The good news is you can technically play this game around 60 frames per second at medium settings. I don't know if that's good news, but you can play it at medium settings at 1440p with a 6950 XT. And for those of you that are curious, like, how does this stack up? 6950 XT is kind of like a 4070 Ti or like a 4070 Super. It's like somewhere in that ballpark in terms of the performance. So if you have a 4070 Ti, this is what you can expect. No, we're not using the tool from NVIDIA. Why are we using a tool? No. We're using MSI Afterburner and Rivetuner. It's two applications combined. What was that? That thing was weird. Okay, well, this is kind. It's weird because it's like the FPS is sometimes sub 60 and sometimes above 60. This almost makes me want to go play Demon Souls Remake on PlayStation 5. $6950 XT is... It's interesting, like, none of these GPUs pull that much power in this game. Even the 6950 XT, which has some of the worst power spikes of all time, is only pulling like 280 watts. That is very interesting, because the 7900 XTX is the only GPU that I have that pulls close to its TDP. Like it's running around on average 347, 348 watts on the 7900 XTX when playing this game. Meanwhile, the 6950 XT doesn't even break 300 in this game. Custom water cooling? I did it like a long time ago with soft tubing, but it's so high maintenance, like I don't really care for custom water cooling anymore. Maybe someday I'll do it. See, the reason why I don't like custom water cooling is too much. I changed the hardware out so many times. Like, maybe for a CPU block, but even then, maybe for CPU, I don't think I'll ever do, like, custom liquid on a GPU, though. I mean, you guys have seen, we've literally gone through, like, 3 graphics cards this evening. Hopefully that high-res texture pack makes these mountains look better. Some of the mountains look fine. Like, that looks okay, but as you get closer to the mountains, the rock formations just look kind of like... Part of them looks good, and other parts of them just look bad. So I don't know if that's just this build of the game, and if the final build will look different. But it just... I don't know, this game... The visuals in this game just seem so... lackluster. I don't know how to describe it. Let's go to 4K. Okay, now we're in the 4K. But now our frame rate is tanking really bad. We're gonna have to turn on Intel XESS. Intel XESS. Ultra. Let's do performance. Intel XESS. Yeah, this is gonna need frame gen. FSR3. Quality. Actually, let's do AMD native AA and do frame gen.
I agree. Really bad graphics for 60 FPS on 5090.
Yeah, it's really hard to run, man. This game is insane. The problem is it's really RE Engine. If I had to put the blame on something, it's RE Engine. RE Engine just has shown, as we saw last year with Dragon's Dogma, this engine just cannot scale. Capcom cannot make open world games with the RE Engine. Like, whoa, look at those FSR3 frame gen artifacts, man. Like, and this is the best way to play the game too. Wait, is frame gen even on? Frame gen is on and the FPS is 49? What's going on here? Really? Hold on, is that right? Am I super sampling? Something's messed up. Did I hit a bug? The game wasn't running that poorly before. Native AA. Oh, maybe the RDNA 2 can't do native AA that well? Quality? Oh, okay. So, wow, it can't really handle native AA that well. And then frame gen, and there we go. Okay, that fixes it. Wow. This is some good... Look at that frame gen. Look at the weapon. Look at how the weapon looks like it's like vibrating. It's like there's some reverberations. Ghosting. That will be fixed though. That will be fixed. The ghosting will be fixed because it was already confirmed by Capcom they fixed that with FSR 3.1 fixes that. This is an FSR 3.0 problem. So I wouldn't be worried about that. I'm not concerned about that at all. It's just like, oh, I can actually show this off because when the game comes out, I can't show the ghosting anymore because it'll be fixed. Yeah, the game. This is how I'm gonna have to play the game. The good news is that technically, with frame gen, I can play the game at 1440p, upscaled to 4K, at ultra settings on the 6950 XT, and it's totally playable. So in that regard, it's no different from a 3090 Ti. A 3090 Ti can do the exact same settings, leveraging FSR 3 frame gen, and it's getting playable frame rates. So all three graphics cards. 4090 is the only one though. Like you don't need the frame gen for 4090 and anything faster than that. So in this case, 5090. But every other graphics card that is, unless you're running like an XTX at like 1440p or something, like unless you're doing that, you know, these GPUs are going to require frame gen for their respective resolutions. I wish I would get the better weather pattern. I like the clear skies. I'm tired of seeing like the cloudy skies, the electric storm. Where's that oasis? Is it over here? I think it's over here. Yeah. Oh, you can actually go in the water. Desert area also looks very bland. It kind of reminds me of the movie Dune. Yeah. I don't know. I just hope that the high resolution texture pack can help. Because to me, I hope this is not the highest it can go on the textures. The colors are a bit muted. Oh, if we do, if we turn off the volumetric, does that help? That did absolutely nothing. I remember in Monster Hunter World, the volumetric fog made Monster Hunter World look like the colors were washed out. So I would always run it on low or off, and it looked a lot better with it off. So it's I don't know, they're going for the same thing. I know what they're going for with the art style. They're going for like that, you know, grungy, like out in the wild. There's a lot of wind shear. There's a lot of like dust. There's a lot of dirt. That's what they're going for with the style. Because this is the same engine that has brought us games like Resident Evil 4 Remake and Devil May Cry 5. So it's not like the RE engine can't give us good looking graphics. It's just, it's what they went for with the game. Like the art direction in the game is kind of like, it's got this kind of like, I don't know, almost like a cinematic color palette, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is like the movie edition of Monster Hunter World. It's like if Monster Hunter World was a TV series, Monster Hunter Wilds is like the cinema movie. They're going for that style of the color scheme. Oh, I'm maxed out on materials. We're gonna have to, yeah, we're gonna have to go back to the camp. What is this? What is this thing? Yeah, let's get out of the desert. Have I explored the entire map, though? I guess I have, because that's the main area. There's like a hidden village, though. We can go to the hidden village. Yeah, never mind. I guess send this to your field pal. I don't know. Yeah, this is the village. The hidden village. This was the last scene in the benchmark. The world looks bland in the game or build. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just, for some reason, the visuals don't look so, everything just seems kind of not blurry, just kind of like muted or washed out. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything I can do to fix that with the graphics. One thing I noticed is that AMD's FSR upscaler has a sharpness filter. So you can actually change the sharpness. What if I max this out? Let's put this all the way to like 1. Does that help? It doesn't get rid of the ghosting, but does it help the game look sharper? Is it over sharpened? I don't know. It still has kind of like this dithering effect. Yeah, I hope the high resolution texture helps a lot, because the fact that this is how the game looks at 4K and it looks so blurry at 1080p, it's kind of underwhelming, to be honest. It's very similar to Dragon's Dogma 2 now that I think about it. Dragon's Dogma 2 had a very washed out look as well. How would fluid motion frames look? I don't think this version of the game supports fluid motion. I tried turning it on like back in November. It didn't do anything. It didn't activate. Yeah, it's kind of like Dragon's Dogma 2. The game is high CPU utilization, but the GPU is at a constant 285 watts. So it's using the GPU, it's using the CPU, it's using a lot of CPU, it's using way more CPU than I would like, but again, that shows me that the RE engine is very dependent on the CPU for doing a lot of the work. This game would be really bad on something like a 5600X. Which is hilarious that you mentioned that, considering Capcom said that that's like the minimum or the recommended CPU. We went over that yesterday. Now you got me wanting to look up the actual specs again, or the requirements for the game. I gotta look it up again. Monster Hunter World. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that CPU, because, hold on, where is it at? Check this out. Look at this. Okay, hold on. Look at what they're saying is minimum. Minimum CPU, a Zen 2. A Zen 2 or some, like, weak sauce old Intel CPU. Like, look at that stuff, man. That's what they're saying is the minimum. Okay, recommended is no different from the minimum. Like, what's the difference? There's no difference. They literally don't change the CPU recommendation from minimum all the way up to high. That is a joke. Capcom, did you even look at this? Did somebody, who signed off on this? And then Ultra is the only time, like, it's like Ultra is like the actual minimum. Or Ultra is the actual recommended. I would consider this recommended specs, not Ultra specs. This is recommended specs. 4K, 60 frame gen. It says you need to have these CPUs, which is a joke, because these CPUs are going to bottleneck the GPU so badly, it isn't even funny. And then they're saying, like, this is what you need to do 60 FPS at 4K? What's the preset, though? Like, what is this, medium? Like, what, ultra? Like, I'm telling you, you're not going to get 60 FPS with frame gen with these GPUs at 4K resolution. Even with frame gen, you're not going to get 60 FPS. Not on ultra settings. So I don't know what they're thinking. Like, who wrote this, man? Like, this, whoever wrote this, like, I'm sorry, but you did not, like, proofread it, or this is horrible. This is terrible. This is not even the correct, like, I tested CPUs that are way better than this and GPUs that are way better than this, and clearly they struggle. 3090 Ti is the prime example. Although 3090 Ti is very similar to a 4070 Ti Super. So I don't know, man. Maybe they love AMD because 4070 Ti Super is basically a 3090 Ti, and the 3090 Ti really, really struggles to run this game. So unless the Ada architecture is like way better than Ampere for some reason. Oh, but you know what? Frame gen. But the thing is, you can still do frame gen on 3090 Ti using FSR. So this is so bizarre. Such a weird, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to say anymore. PlayStation Network is down right now. Otherwise, we would be showcasing the game on a PlayStation 5 Pro. Try turning saturation all the way down. And then it's setting up the HDR. Where is it? Where's the saturation? I mean, the HDR is there, so I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand, like, where that is. Saturation. I don't see saturation anywhere. I don't know. That's weird. Oh boy. Look at storage recommendation. Oh yeah. Oh, you guys are... Huh. I was looking at... I thought you guys were seeing the game menu. Oh well. You guys were looking at this still. Yeah, the... 150 gigs. Oh, by the way, SSD is required. The game is expected to run... The game leverages direct storage, apparently. So, that should reduce any sort of texture pop-in, provided you have the game installed on a fast SSD. This is also kind of misleading because SATA... Like, if you have a SATA SSD, direct storage doesn't work on SATA SSDs. To my knowledge, it, like, especially if it's the direct storage 2.0, so you have to be on an NVMe SSD, not okay. Not only does it have to be M.2, it has to be NVMe M.2, not SATA M.2, because there's a difference. So in order to leverage direct storage, it needs to be on an NVMe SSD. So yeah, yeah, this game is pretty brutal. This is supposed to be a contender for Game of the Year, but you know what's stupid? You know what's ironic? Last year, Dragon's Dogma was a contender for Game of the Year. It was supposed to be it was gonna basically run for Game of the Year, but it didn't even make the list because too many people hated on it because of the performance issues. I fear that Monster Hunter is gonna run into a similar situation, where it's gonna come out, it's gonna get really good reviews, but then like the one thing that people are gonna complain about is the performance, and that might hurt it. I mean, unless the reviewers are like, oh, frame gen's so wonderful, we'll give it like a perfect 10 out of 10 because of frame gen. It's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. But that would be like one way to overlook the shortcomings. I mean, that's the thing that the developers are betting on. Capcom is betting on, like, if we tell everyone to turn on frame gen at the start of the game, when they first start the game, tell them to turn on frame gen. If they all do it, then we're good. We're gonna be Game of the Year, or we're gonna at least be on the list of Game of the Year, because last time Dragon's Dogma, there was no frame gen. Everyone was averaging like 30 something frames per second. Didn't matter what kind of GPU you had, you were at 30 frames per second. And in Varenworth, and it was like, oh, it was a disaster. Same engine, open world. It was expected. Dragon's Dogma 2 is 100% until today. I know. Dragon's Dogma 2 still is extremely CPU bound, even to this day. Yeah, I know all about that. Dragon's Dogma 2. That was still one of my favorite games of last year, though. Oh, I don't know. I feel kind of defeated and underwhelmed with this game, man. I was looking forward to like streaming a whole bunch of this, like a marathon stream this weekend. I don't know if it's even worth doing now. 3090 Ti performance was so disappointing. The 6950 XT doesn't even fare any better. It's like, I gotta go back and look at the footage. I think it's basically the same. It uses less power. I mean, it's using like 60, 70 watts less than 3090 Ti, and it's performing basically the same. Oh, here comes the electric storm again. Now we have even more washed out colors. It's like somebody's inkjet printer like ran out of hue, and now the colors are all messed up. I don't even know if I want to test B580. I mean, you guys voted for B580, so we're gonna definitely test B580 tomorrow. But man, this is disappointing. This is disappointing, man. I don't know how I feel about this. I have so many mixed feelings right now. I love the Monster Hunter franchise, but so disappointing. Such a letdown. I mean, the graphics, look at the graphics. The graphics, like, this is maxed out. This is like 4K. This is the sharpest you can do. And then we got, where is it? Frame gen, ultra, high-res texture, highest high-res texture. Max it out, high-res texture. We got lots of VRAM. And it's like, there you go. High-res textures, there you go. That's it. The pinnacle of gaming. This is the pinnacle of gaming in 2025. Yeah, something does look off with the textures. I don't know, man. It just looks so weird. Like, hold up. Let's go to the town. Let's go to the actual base camp. Let's go to the base camp. Where is it? Right here. Let's go to the actual base camp. Man. Yeah, because when we tested 4090 4090 was basically performing kind of the same, wasn't it? Do you guys remember what the average was for 4090 when we tested that earlier? 4090 was like 85, somewhere around there. Yeah, this is the old build, but still. 80, yeah, like 85. And then, do you guys remember what 3090 Ti was? Because 3090 Ti, to me, it feels like it was exactly the same as this. I thought it was like 20 FPS worse than the... On average, it was 20 FPS worse than 4090. So if the 4090 was 85, it was like 65. Without frame gen or something like that. Although, I don't know, like 3090 Ti could barely even get to 60 with no frame gen. Like, it was always sub 60. That's all I remember without frame gen. And this GPU is no better. This GPU is sub 60 without frame gen. 60, 70, yeah, it was something like that. I don't know, man. This is weird. This RE engine needs like a new, like Capcom needs to get that new engine up to speed, like ASAP. Like if they want to do open worlds, they need to stop using this engine. We already showcased that earlier. You missed that stream. It was a Threadripper. We've tested, guys, the people that are commenting about like 4090 stuff, it's clear to me that you guys were not here at the start of the stream. Like, you guys missed the 4090 stream, and you also missed the 3090 Ti stream. This is the third stream. This is the third test. We've done 4090 and Threadripper. Then we did 3090 Ti and this CPU, 9800X3D, and now we're doing 6950 XT with the exact same CPU. Yeah, Threadripper handled the game well. You know why it handled the game well? Guess what? Quad memory channel. That's the answer. Quad memory channel. You get all that luscious memory bandwidth on Threadripper. Somebody left a really interesting comment on the November stream on the Threadripper plus 4090 stream from November. Somebody left a very insightful comment talking about the fact that they theorize that the RE engine is extremely like bandwidth dependent, like system memory bandwidth dependent, not just GPU memory. They're talking about like the system RAM. And when you have Threadripper has quad channel memory. Ryzen, like this, only has dual channel memory. So you got two channels. You have two channels max on Ryzen, on any Ryzen and on any Intel core. You're stuck at dual channel. But Threadripper has quad channel. That's 4 memory channels. Then, if you're on Threadripper Pro, which no one's going to be on that, let's be honest, unless you're like using a workstation for like a corporation as an employee and you're like gaming on a corporate computer on an actual workstation, a dev station, those have 8-channel, octa-channel memory. So those dev stations literally have 8 channels of memory. Those things have so much memory bandwidth that, yeah, they probably aren't running into any sort of system bottleneck. It's not going to tank the GPU. It's going to probably go up because we're in a CPU bottleneck here. Yeah, see? Bam. It went right up. It went way up. We just gained 10 frames per second because we went away from the CPU bottleneck. This game is memory bound. It's like, this is the reason why it's CPU bottleneck in the town. It's so obvious. It's straight up Dragon's Dogma 2 all over again. You go inside Vernworth in Dragon's Dogma, guess what? 30 FPS. You go outside, 80 FPS. That's the difference. In here, we're hitting a CPU bound scenario. It's like so obvious. You go outside, and bam, it goes way up. Well, it doesn't go way up. It just goes up. But that's because this CPU is the least CPU bottlenecked CPU. Like, this would be worse on any other CPU that doesn't have 3D V-cache if you go inside that town. We will be testing other CPUs. Maybe I guess there's no point in testing this with other GPUs.
Imagine playing on base PS5.
Well, I did. I did play on base PS5 last November. So I can tell you, it's like 30s, it's like low 30s, mid 30s on PS5 in resolution mode, and then in the performance mode, it's like mid 40s, upper 40s. I think Digital Foundry did a video about it, but yeah, like it's not good. It's basically 30 something. It's on PS5. It's just like Dragon's Dogma 2, man. It's just straight up Dragon's Dogma 2 all over again. Yeah. So tomorrow, here's what we're gonna do. So obviously, the game is so hard to run. We're gonna completely ignore this GPU. There's no reason to showcase the Legend 1080, the GTX 1080. We're gonna forget about this guy. It's gonna go back into storage and not do anything. It's not worth it. I don't even want to try to get the game playable on a 1080 Founders Edition. It isn't even worth it. And then also, a GPU that I was also curious in testing, the OG, the legendary 5700 XT. We're probably also not going to test this GPU. So my old blower style AMD 5700 XT and my blower style 1080 Founders Edition, these GPUs, guess what? Back into storage, boys. You guys are going back into retirement because we aren't even going to use them. Those things can get out of here. Get those GPUs out of here. Yeah, we don't know. Get those guys out. They're out. Okay, so that means tomorrow we're going to focus more on CPU bottlenecks because I don't know what else to say. Like, we've tested 3090 or 3090 Ti, 6950 XT, 4090. I mean, what else is there, right? Like, I'm just gonna... at this point, we're gonna go with lower-end GPUs. We're gonna move down the stack, and we're gonna hit a point where it's like you can't hit playable frame rates because the GPU's too old. So... man, this game requires someone to be on X3D at minimum. Although, or at least Zen 4, or at least Intel's 13th gen. Like, I can't even imagine running this game on a CPU that's older than... like a 7950X or a 13900K. Anything older than those CPUs is going to be utter garbage playing this game. Basically, here's what I'm thinking. Anybody on DDR4, if your motherboard is DDR4, I'm so sorry, but your computer is garbage now for this game. Like, no offense, but like DDR4 and Monster Hunter Wilds is just not a good combination. You gotta be on DDR5 minimum. If the computer does not have a DDR5 motherboard, it's basically trash tier for this game. Like, I'm just telling you guys how it is. 5800 X3D might work. That's like the only CPU that can be on DDR4 that might actually be able to handle this game. But I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be that good, even that CPU. The game is so memory bandwidth bound. Have you tested 5800 X3D? It's not poor optimization. It's a limitation of the engine. It's a fundamental behavior with the game engine itself. You can't call that... I guess you can technically say that's poor optimization, although that's very debatable. So I don't know. You're on DDR4 and it's working right at 1440 at least. You would like to do a new build this year, but okay, hold on a second. So you're playing, what is your build? You're playing it on, okay, 5900X, okay. What's your GPU? 5900X, 1440p. I'm very curious to know what that GPU is. 3080. Oh man, the 3080. What was the frame rate? We just tested 3090 Ti. Now I kind of want to test 3080 Ti and see how that does. Should I do it? Should I bring it out of retirement? GeForce RTX 3080 Ti Founders Edition. Should I bring it out? Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
Is 64 gigabytes DDR5-8000 or 48 gigabytes 8000 better for this game?
To be honest, they're gonna be about the same. I kind of think, like, if you're on a 16 core, here's what I would say in that scenario. If you're on a 9800X3D, 48 gigabyte 8000 is probably gonna be a tiny bit better, but it's like a little bit better. We're talking like anywhere from 1 to 3% better. However, if you're on a 16 core CPU, so for example, if you plan on upgrading to a 9950 X3D, then I would recommend 64 gigabytes at 6000. But if you're gonna stay with an 8 core CPU, then I would say 48 gigabytes 8000. We really want to bring this thing out? We really want to bring this thing out? 3080 Ti? 3080 Ti? We really want to test this thing? I don't know if it's worth it, man. I don't know. You got my interest with that 5900X on DDR4 with a 3080 at 1440p. The 3090 Ti is a stronger Yeah, I know. We just tested it. You'd skip 3080 Ti? I just want to know, like, what the power consumption on it would be. Because the 3090 Ti was only pulling 350 something watts. It was like 100 watts lower than its actual TDP, which was very surprising. Met saying test 7900 XT. 7900 XT is lined up to go, but it's going to be going with a specific CPU. Yeah, we're going to do different CPUs, but we're going to do different CPUs with different GPUs, but like not all different GPUs. So here's what we're going to do tomorrow. If we're not going to do these joke GPUs like 3080 Ti, for example, if we're not going to use these, then the one GPU that I still need to test is the Intel B580 because it was requested by the viewers in the vote that we did earlier. There was a poll. For those of you that missed the voting, I'm sorry, but the chat already voted, and they voted for the Intel B580. So we are going to test, at the very least, we will test the B580 with the 9800 X3D. We will test that. However, for all the other stuff, like the CPUs that people are talking about, we're going to standardize on the 7900 XTX, because that's what I do. Like, I standardize on that GPU because I don't have to worry about the stupid power connector, having to disconnect the power connector on the 4090 multiple times. So no, we're not going to test on a 4090. We're going to test on a 7900 XTX because it's much safer. Because you don't understand, every time I have to disconnect the GPU and move it around to all these systems, I got to unplug the power cable. And you don't want to be unplugging the 12-volt power cable all the time, because that's not good. You're going to cause it to melt. You're going to weaken it. So that's why we don't test with a 4090 in all these different systems. So we're going to test with the 7900 XTX for the CPU. So we're going to do this CPU plus XTX. We're going to do 9950X plus this CPU. And we're also going to test, so let me clarify it. So tomorrow, Intel B580 plus 9800X3D. That'll be one of the streams. In no particular order. Maybe that'll be the first one to get it out of the way. So we'll probably do Intel GPU plus Ryzen 3D first. Then we will do the XTX plus something. Maybe we'll do it with this first. So 9950X. Basically Tech Thursdays. We'll do Tech Thursdays 9950X with the MSI Godlike with 96 gigabytes of system memory running at 6400. We'll test that plus the 7900 XTX. That is my typical live stream computer. So I want to see how that one performs. And then we will test Intel Core Ultra 9 285K. Intel Core Ultra 9 because I did not have... Here's the thing. When we did these tests in November, I did not have the X3D Zen 5, nor did I have the Intel Core Ultra 9. Now, I did have the Intel Core Ultra 7, but I don't think there's going to be much of a difference, but we're going to test it anyway for completion. So we're going to test the Core Ultra 9 plus 7900 XTX, the Ryzen 9 plus 7900 XTX, and the... Well, I did it backwards. You guys know. Zen 5 X3D, Zen 5 no X3D, Intel's newest, best CPU, the Intel Core Ultra 9 285K, plus 7900 XTX, and then we'll do like B580 or something. And then if we have enough time, we will also test Intel's 13900K on a very rare stream. That'll be in the weirdest location. It will not have this background. It'll be a completely different location. It'll not have a fancy microphone. It'll have if you guys witnessed the 1300K stream back in November, it'll be the exact same setup in that very strange room. That is where it will be. 13900K rises again to the occasion. 100 degrees Celsius on an air cooler. Yes, that is what we will be doing with a 7900 XT. Not XTX, an XT. And then if we have enough time after that, we may also showcase the 7950 X3D plus the RTX 4080 Super Founders Edition. And that will probably be the very last one. So that's what we'll do. So I got to remember that list. So B580, these three, that's like 4 streams, then 13900 and that other one. So we're talking like 6 streams tomorrow. Yeah, that's a lot. I think that covers it though. That covers it. Oh, now when we're going to end the stream, the weather looks really nice. This is like my favorite weather in the game, when it's like this. Clear skies. This is when the game is like at its best, in terms of how it looks. MSI Afterburner. Alright, so that's going to be it. It's a done deal. We got like 6 live streams. Because we do these tests live, so you guys can see the performance live. We'll not test with this. This is a GPU that we will absolutely not test with. Do you guys know what this who knows what this GPU is? Guess what this GPU is. What is it? This is a random GPU that was just sitting on the desk. Nicholas got it. A380. I don't know how you got that so fast, but you were right. This is the ASRock Challenger A380. ASRock Challenger A380. There it is. It's just randomly just right there on the desk. I don't know, man. I looked down, and literally right in front of me, there was an A380 just on, right there in front of me. Like, why is this here? It's just randomly here, man. There's a random A380 just, a wild A380 appeared. Like, out of nowhere, there's an A380. Like, is there anything else around here that I should know about? Like, there's just random GPUs just right there. Okay. So, no 3080 Ti. We're gonna skip 3080 Ti. Let's make that clear. You guys wanted to see... Somebody wanted to see 3080 Ti. I don't think it's worth it. Most viewers don't think it's worth it. That's another GPU that is probably not worth testing. 3090 Ti performed underwhelming. 6950 XT. 6950 XT also performed just as poorly as 3090 Ti, but because 3090 Ti had an MSRP of $2,000, it's embarrassing. Whereas the 6950 XT wasn't nearly that much money. I think it was like $1,100. It was an $1,100 MSRP. $1,099 6950 XT versus $1,999 or $2,000 3090 Ti, and they perform about the same. I mean, I have to go back and look at the footage on the 3090 Ti, but man, that is terrible. 3090 Ti was like the most disappointing GPU in terms of how it performed in this game. So yeah, we're gonna skip the 3080 Ti. The 3080 Ti is like, pick me, pick me. It's just sitting here on the desk. It's like, pick me. No. No, you're going back into the storage. You really think the 6950 XT did a little bit better? You know what's crazy though? The 6950 XT actually is rendering the live stream. So the 3090 Ti was not rendering the live stream. But you guys can see right here, the AMD integrated Radeon graphics was doing absolutely nothing. It's not encoding the stream. Instead, the 6950 XT is encoding the live stream. Which means not only was the 6950 XT playing the game, it was also encoding the live stream at the same time, and it's still putting out these sort of performance numbers despite doing double duty, where the 3090 Ti wasn't even doing double duty. It was only playing the game, and the encoding was actually offloaded to the Ryzen integrated graphics on the CPU. So that's crazy. So it does seem like RE Engine really does like AMD graphics cards. You know, in a weird way, this game reminds me of Starfield. Starfield was a game that when it came out at launch, I remember the power consumption of all the NVIDIA cards was significantly lower than normal. And the AMD graphics cards were also lower than normal, but they were not as much lower than normal compared to the NVIDIA cards. So, like, for example, if an NVIDIA card, like if a 3080, or no, okay, not a 3080, well, yeah, let's just say, like if a 3080 has a TDP of 320 watts, in Starfield, it was pulling like 240, 250 watts, 260 watts, somewhere around there. Meanwhile, a 6800 XT with a TDP of like 280 watts was pulling like 265 watts, 270 watts. So it was kind of weird. I remember that. Starfield very much favored AMD graphics cards at launch. This game does seem like it kind of favors AMD cards, but I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything from AMD to compare with 4090. So we'll see how XTX does tomorrow, though. Like XTX, if I remember, because I tested it in November, it did better than this, but it did not do as good as the 4090. So it's gonna be somewhere in the middle. So we will see. Yeah, we'll test some CPUs tomorrow, just to get that out of the way, because I know this is a very CPU-bound game. And you guys can see, like, the heavy CPU usage on the game. The game is very heavily loading the CPU. If a game uses more than 20% of the CPU, it is a heavy CPU game. Like, if your CPU utilization is more than 20%, and you're playing a game, and all you're doing is playing a game, and the CPU utilization is higher than 20%, that means that game is very heavy on the CPU. I said this in the very first live stream with Threadripper earlier. Because Threadripper was averaging like 18 to 20% CPU, it was like right on the threshold of what I consider high CPU utilization for a game. This is like way over that. This is like 40%. But again, this is only 8 cores, 16 threads, so that's the reason why. But, yeah. You can tell, despite that, the GPU is pegged at 100%, 99 to 100%, so it's not like the GPU is bound by the CPU. But actually, you know what? Let's investigate this a little bit before we close out the stream. Let's go into the town. And let's see what happens to the GPU utilization. Let's see if it goes down. Let's see if it hits a CPU bind and goes down. So now it's like 95%, but it's still relatively high though, see? So this to me indicates there's a slight CPU bottleneck, but the GPU utilization is still very high. So you can kind of see it there, but it's still averaging like 98, 99. So it's hard to say, but to me it definitely does look like when you're in the camp, you're going to be CPU limited. Turning off SMT is probably a bad idea. That'll probably make the performance worse. Because this game does seem like it needs a lot of CPU. So no, I definitely would not turn SMT off. Okay, maybe if you have a 16 core, like if you have a Ryzen 9 9950X or a Ryzen 9 9900X, so like a 12 core, like a dual CCD. If you have a dual CCD, it might be worth investigating turning off SMT just to see if it improves performance. I highly doubt it will improve performance. I have a feeling that RE Engine scales well with the cores, because we saw that with Threadripper. Like, you guys have to go back and watch the footage where I showcased the task manager for Threadripper, and what you'll see is with Threadripper, I think it was using like somewhere around 10 cores or so. It was more than 8. It was like 10 cores. You would see like the last 2 cores were ping-ponging, zigzagging between the hyperthread or the SMT and the 2 logical cores, or the 2 logical threads, I should say. So, yeah, it's very cool to look at high core count CPUs, like Threadripper CPUs, for example, and see how the game behaves on those very high core count CPUs. Because you can see the absolute maximum of what the developers allow the game threads to get scheduled onto. So definitely scales beyond 8 cores though. Car 5 Vanguard 0, isn't that what's Car 5 Vanguard 0 closed down like a couple years back, didn't it? Car 5 Vanguard 0 Dear Days 2. What is that? Is that like a mobile game? Like Car 5 Vanguard 0? Or Car 5... What was it? Vanguard 0? Vanguard 0? $750X3D? You have a $750X3D and 4090? But see, like, this is a lot of CPU usage for one game. That's a lot. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see like what happens if you disable SMT on a 16 core. So you have 16 core, 16 thread versus this 8 core, 16 thread. I wouldn't take an 8 core and turn off SMT. That's not a good idea. I think it actually needs the SMT. I mean, clearly you guys can see. Like, here's what happens. If we turn this off, if you turn SMT off, all the work that you see on, like, this half is forced onto this half. Because you only have, like, 8 threads total. So you're basically going to run much higher CPU. Here's what I would imagine would happen. If I turn off SMT, the CPU average utilization will jump from 50% to, like, 80%. It'll add like 30% distributed across 8 threads. So it'll still work, but it'll be higher CPU utilization. I don't think that necessarily means it'll perform better or worse. It may end up performing very similar to the way it performs. Because it'll be more of a Windows scheduling thing. SMT, yeah, AMD's SMT is actually good. So, and you will see, well... On the 13900K stream, you will see how Intel's thread director functions with the hyperthreads. But more interesting than that, you will see how the the Intel Core Ultra performs without hyperthreading, because Intel Core Ultra has no hyperthreading, no SMT. So it's strictly what cores it has is the threads that it has. So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But we will be doing that tomorrow. So, where are we at? Okay, so that's going to be it, guys, for this stream. We did an hour. We did 90 minutes. We did 1 hour on Threadripper and 4090. We did 90 minutes on 3090 Ti. And we're doing like an hour and 20 on this one. So, that's going to be it. We'll try to do some actual hunts tomorrow and actually try to clear the 2 new monsters that are in the demo. And that'll be it. There's going to be a lot of streams. So the streams will start sometime tomorrow morning, I would imagine. So we'll be streaming in the morning and the afternoon, guys. So it's not going to be like evening. We may do an evening stream, but it'll be like whatever leftover CPUs we got to cover. So expect it to be tomorrow morning. So if you don't care about the B580, then you can probably sleep in or whatever, because that's probably going to be the first one that we cover in the morning. Yeah, the streams will flow. Yeah, I like that. World was peak. You don't know yet? Well, yeah, we don't know. We don't know, man. You can't compare this to World, because World was a complete game. This is literally one area of the game with like only a handful of the monsters. So, okay. So we're going to be covering a bunch of CPUs tomorrow. We got a bunch of, well, not so many GPUs compared to this, but we got a couple of GPUs. So I will see you guys tomorrow. It's going to be a marathon. So I will catch you guys then. Until then, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.